So when you come to these kind of things and you hear from people that have had colon cancer, you kind of hear similar tales, getting hit by a Mack truck, something coming out of nowhere. When you hear from people that have diseases like FAP or perhaps Lynch, you often hear kind of the same tale, except for it goes a little bit like this. My grandfather, when he was 36 years old, after being obstinate, stubborn, and refusing to go to a doctor and showing all signs of colon cancer, went to his doctor, proctologist in Valdosta, where I'm from, and the doctor immediately recognized it as familial adenomatous polyposis. And so for people who aren't familiar with that, when you hear about polyps that people are getting before they turn into cancer, people with my disease, it looks like shag carpeting through there. It's just rows of polyps and polyps upon polyps. And so it's pretty easy to look at it and tell what it is. But my grandfather was told he had FAP, that he had stage 4 colon cancer, and that 3 of his 6 kids statistically had the same disease, and 3 of his 6 kids did, my dad being one of them. And so what tends to happen is you have this one cancer event, and if you're I don't want to say lucky, but if you're fortunate, I guess, or you have a medical team that can follow with this family history and start getting the better care. And that's what's happened. There's been this evolution of care through my family. So my dad had his colectomy. I had my colectomy. My brothers are just with the family. And we all had pretty good care. When we were younger, we thought once you get the colon out, you're fine. Then you start finding out later on that these diseases affect other body parts. And so a few years ago, so when I was about 35 years old, I was doing research. I had lived a normal life. I'd had my colectomy. I'd gone 20 years, done everything normal people do. No one's ever walked up to me and said, "Hey man, you look like you don't have a colon." Like it just, I just don't look sick. I just look like I try and look like a dude. That's just what I think I look like. And so, then I got sick and I couldn't play soccer and I couldn't ride my bike anymore. I'm just getting sicker and sicker. I was had been married to Sean for a month. My dad had been dead for a year from issues related to FAP, and I was the same age as my grandfather. And a little bit of freak out mode happened, because I was just getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And it turned out to be pretty benign. It turned out to be something that we could deal with, but this was after just more and more invasive tests. And it was really kind of awesome because during this period of time, I just got to see the full gamut of issues that people that have FAP and other forms of hereditary colon cancer don't have. So, for instance, living out in Naperville, outside of Chicago, more and more invasive tests, my doctor never told me there was a specialist in Chicago. Going on Facebook for the first time and actually researching what the community was saying about FAP actually made me want to dive into a hole, because there's these patients and families who are just totally freaked out. They're the first people to have it, and I'm looking at it like, man, if I was a de novo person, if I just had found out I had FAP and this is my look at it, this is not healthy. This is scary stuff. These are people really terribly affected. I started looking at the educational stuff that was available for families and realizing that, my wife is, anyone that knows my wife will tell you, she's far more intelligent than I am. But even as smart, Dave Dubin's nodding his head. But even as intelligent as she is, her literacy level for health information is not as high as the people that are often writing it. And so when you start off with something like autosomal dominant conditions, you lose your patience. And so when we came out the other side, I just had this appreciation for all these little things that families need. They need education that they can understand, because if you don't have that, if you can't own your information and discuss it in the way that your family understands it, they're not going to listen to you, and you're not going to be able to pass on this information. If you can't advocate for your care, you're not going to feel better. You're not going to have hope that there's something better. If you can't communicate in this community, these diseases are rare. If you can't communicate in this community, where do you draw from support if you can't find someone else that has FAP or Lynch or juvenile polyposis or these other conditions? And so I quit chemistry and started this organization. We originally were the Familial Adenomatous Polyposis Foundation because I was rather myopic and that was the only thing that existed in the world to me. And then started developing these resources that I found were useful for a bunch, for the whole host of hereditary colon cancer syndromes, and broadened our umbrella to the Hereditary Colon Cancer Foundation. And so it's just Sean and I. We work our rear ends off, and we develop educational resources. We're starting family days so that families can interact with medical professionals at centers of excellence. We put together a list of centers of excellence so that people can find, you know, Dr. Anand and find Dr. Weber and not have to have such a hard time searching for good, you know, quality care. We starting support groups around the country and just doing all the kind of low-hanging fruit, all the things that should have already been done. I mean, these diseases didn't show up yesterday. They've been around for a long time. I mean, St. Mark's has been studying this since the 20s, you know, and yet we still don't have groups for these people. So, you know, we're just trying to do the things that are going to help people out, and that's kind of my little story.
Great.